Hi there. After my family and I started homeschooling, not long after, I decided to plan a trip to Washington, D.C. and the surrounding area. And we went with another family, and my kids had a blast. We visited all over D.C. I ran them ragged, but we had such a great time. And it's a trip that I really want other homeschool families to be able to enjoy. So I've organized a trip from April 12th to April 18th of 2026 just for homeschool families. And we will be seeing some amazing sites. We'll go to Ford's Theater, where the Lincoln assassination took place. We'll go to the Spy Museum. We're going to see, of course, all the memorials. We will see some government buildings. Also, Mount Vernon is one of my favorite places where George Washington made his home, and the National Zoo, the Museum of the Bible, the Smithsonian, and also Arlington Cemetery. So please join me. This is one of the best things you can do as an American homeschool family. But even if you're coming from abroad, you're more than welcome. I hope to see you there.
The Sam Sorbo Show is brought to you in partnership by the Herzog Foundation.
All right. So my guest today is lighting a fire under Christian creatives. She's helping them to turn their message into ministry and their ministry into impact. If you've ever felt called to write or speak or lead with your story, you'll want to hear this episode of The Sam Sorbo Show. Here we go.
Sam Sorbo,
Sam, welcome back to the program.
I'm glad to welcome Sam Sorbo.
It's great to have you
here. All right. She's a 4-time published author in the Christian living genre, a digital marketing expert, and a business coach helping Christian creatives build sustainable ministries. As a business coach at the Author Conservatory, she's mentoring the next generation of storytellers to write with purpose and impact the world for Christ. Please help me welcome Becky Kopitzke.
Hi, Sam.
Your name is a mouthful.
It is a mouthful. And I'll tell you, when I first heard my husband tell me his last name, I said, I'm never going to marry this guy.
Oh, dear.
Oh, but we picked the guy, not the husband, not the name, right?
And God laughed while you made your little plans.
Indeed, he did, as he does on a daily basis.
On a daily basis. Well, it's such a pleasure to meet you or see you in person. And so I've heard about this work that you're doing, and I have to say I really applaud it. We are up against some very large forces.
Yes.
And it is particularly in storytelling.
Yes.
And of course, we are the stories we tell ourselves, and that's on a personal basis, but it's also on a cultural basis. So do you want to speak to that and what you're all about?
Oh, absolutely. And thank you so much for having me on your show. This is going to be a really important conversation, I think, because as you know, especially in the film industry, and I experience from the literature industry, our culture just creates a lot of content that is supposedly appealing to the masses, but is increasingly dishonoring to God. Can I say that? It is content that has turned into a lot of scenes and messaging that is not even necessarily overtly anti-God, although there is certainly that, but just whatever happened to the idea of thinking about that which is lovely, that which is praiseworthy, right? And so I am really an advocate for helping creatives return to that which is pure and lovely in their books, as you would, I'm assuming you would agree, in the film industry, that which, yes, examines the hard issues, but does it with a Christ-centered lens, so that the end of the story is not depressing. There's always hope. And there are hard things that happen, but there's always hope. And especially inside of the Author Conservatory, where I am a business coach for young creatives, young novelists, we're teaching them that it is okay to move against the grain and not necessarily have to create steamy scenes or a lot of violence or gore in order to appeal to a general market. A lot of our students are not necessarily writing only for the Christian market. They also want to create content for the general market. And who's to say that that can't be God-honoring and hope-filled and still appealing to the masses? And I think that's just a trend that we need to regenerate here in our country and even beyond.
How do you coach somebody in this respect?
That's a great question. Well, certainly the students inside of the Author Conservatory and the people that I work with through my own coaching business, they are believers. And we, are not shy at all about saying we are a faith-based organization. All are welcome. All are welcome. But we're going to follow some biblical principles in how we approach the industry, the content that we create, how we speak to an audience. So really, we coach from the perspective of our heart, the heart of being a servant. We think always first about who are we creating this content for? Who are we writing for? How do we intend to bless them? It's so much less about the creator, the author, than it is about the reader that we want to connect with, that we want to bless. And it's really an outpouring of the heart. It's not like we need to create new methods of writing books or new methods of marketing books. As long as we keep this centered focus on how does this best serve the audience and how does this best serve the Lord through the messages that we're conveying to them? And it really is a natural progression of your faith.
Right. I mean, you've published several books
Yeah.
yourself. So I'm sure that your own experience in publishing, did you struggle to publish when you first started as a Christian author?
Well, I fortunately came out of the days of the Christian mommy blogger. That was, as you know, 10, 15 years ago, all the hype. There's so many mom bloggers out there. So many of us were getting book contracts because people were following the information we were sharing. And that was back in the day when homeschooling was really starting to grab a hold. And a lot of moms were looking for information online about how do I best raise my children? How do I best serve the Lord as a wife and a mom? And so many of us bloggers were out there serving with that kind of content because there was a market need for it. There were open doors for us. And I think that some of those doors have started to
Mhm.
close. And in which case, many of us now it's harder to get a book contract. It's harder to get your foot in the door. And because of that, many content creators that I work with become really shy about promoting what they think is promoting themselves because there are some best practices on social media. There are best practices on building an email list. And there's a worldly way to do it. And then there is a Christ centered way to do it. And both of them do require putting yourself out there. It's just a
Can
matter of making a distinction between what is all about showing who you are and who you are in Christ and what he's gifted you to do. Have you seen that also in the film industry?
So I just want to back up a minute, and I'll address that, but I just want to back up. So can you differentiate the difference between self-promotion with a Christ-centered worldview or with a non-Christ-centered worldview
Sure. Well,
specifically?
promoting yourself is saying, I am great. Look at me. Look at what I have done. Promoting yourself through Christ's lens is saying, God is great. Look at what he has done through me. And it's a mental shift. But when we realize that what we're doing is not telling an audience, I am fantastic, buy my book. But instead, what we're saying is, God has gifted me to do this. He has called me to do this. And in obedience,
Right.
I am writing this book. Then you can't not share it because by not sharing it, you're essentially cutting off what God has asked you to do. Not that we have that sort of power. He's sovereign, of course, but we do have a role to play in saying yes or no. And our
So
students at the Author Conservatory are saying yes.
right. And so I will, from my own experience, uh, I didn't write my book because I wanted the book to make a lot of money. I wanted people to read the book. I wanted
Yes.
the book to help people free themselves from the schools. And that's why. And so, yes, in a sense, I don't promote myself. I promote my thoughts, which are
Yes.
not mine, right? Which,
They're
which
not
have,
yours.
right. So in that sense, that makes perfect sense to me. So how do you mentor, well, why don't we talk about your books? Tell us, you've got 4 books out there now?
Yes, 4 books out there now, all in the Christian living genre. So my first book was called The Supermom Myth. It really was talking about the way that we as moms, uh, I think there's a lot of guilt that comes associated with every aspect of motherhood when we are listening to all the voices out there telling us how to do it. And so we create these personas within ourselves that we fight against. So, for example, monster mom is the woman who wants to yell at her kids all the time, or there's the maid who feels like it's her only job to clean up after the kids. And it's the idea of how we create problems for ourselves with our misunderstandings of what God has actually called us to do in parenting. That was my first book. I've also written a book called The Cranky Mom Fix, which is essentially all about how to find more joy in your children than enjoying them more than you scold them. Not that you would have ever had that problem, Sam. I'm going to guess you've never struggled in that area.
No, you know what? I admit that I was a yelling mom.
Yes.
And I finally one day realized I have all the power. Why am I yelling?
Yes.
It's all within my and this is what I tell parents, there's no reason ever to yell at your children unless they are doing something that is, actively going to hurt them or someone else. Like there's
Right.
just no reason to
Yeah.
yell. But it's a very difficult, and I've seen people online and stuff talking about this, about how the yelling is something that they basically inherited from their own childhood and being yelled at and stuff like that. And okay, if you want to get into all the psycho mumbo jumbo about it, but
Right.
it really boils down to very simply, the child has very little power. You
Yes.
have all the power, and all you have to do is rely on consequences to do the dirty work, and you're good. Thanks for tuning into the Sam Sorbo Show. We are in a battle for our very nation, a nation that was founded on Christian principles and on the Bible. The 10 Commandments is the basis for our rule of law. But these days, when you go talk to people on the street, you'll find that most of them don't even know what rule of law means. And that's why I'm so proud to have Herzog Foundation as a sponsor of my show. I also love what they do because they seek for the benefit of Christian education throughout the nation. So Herzog Foundation is a wonderful partner for us here at the Sam Sorbo Show. Thanks for watching. The child has very little power. You have all the power, and all you have to do is rely on consequences to do the dirty work, and you're good.
Yes. And we have access to the fruit of the Spirit, which is self-control, right? So I think for me, because
Well,
I also
but
wasn't.
you're right, but people brag about their lack of patience. Like this is
Yes.
a bragging thing that we're doing now, which I totally am like, it's a virtue, right? Like you shouldn't brag that you lack one of the virtues.
Yes.
So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. The whole
Fruit of the
idea of
Spirit.
choosing
Yeah,
to exercise kindness, choosing to exercise self-control, all of those things, we have a choice. And I was also the yelling mom. And as a recovering yelling mom, I can tell you that it is absolutely possible to make a change in that capacity. And we can have all sorts of excuses as to why it can't happen.
right.
And the blame is often placed on the kids. The kids trigger me. Well, the kids are kids,
You're
and
an
in the Bible,
adult.
you're an
Well,
adult, and the
grow
Bible
up.
tells us, that there will be folly in the children, and we have a choice to make. Am I going to be the grown up here, or am I going to fall into a tantrum similar to theirs? And believe me, it's easy to do.
So clever. Those clever words that you just uttered. Am I going to fall in a tantrum similar to theirs? Because that's what it is.
That's what it
It's
is.
adult tantrums, the
Yes.
yelling at kids, because
Yes.
adults should have no need to yell at children. You can commiserate with them. You can say, "Oh, I'm so sorry you lost your privileges for that thing that oh, that's too bad for you. Now go to your room." Like
Eh,
it's
right.
that simple. You don't have to yell at them. Go to your room. You lost
Yeah.
privilege. No. Oopsie,
Yeah.
you lost privileges.
Eh,
Oh,
Yep. And I
bummer
get
to be
that.
you right now.
Well, and sometimes we just want to release that energy because it pents up and it builds up
Yeah.
inside of us. Okay, well, yell into a pillow, go into the closet and scream. I've done that multiple times, right? But I really do not want my anger to be reflected at my children because it's not ultimately anger at them. It's frustration with myself that I can't handle the input better, right? And my kids, honestly, how demoralizing is it for children to be torn apart by the one person who's supposed to love them
Right.
unconditionally?
Right. Right.
So,
Demoralizing. And demoralizing is such a good word, right?
yeah,
You're taking the morals out of the child. That's terrible.
yes,
Like if you think about
yes.
it.
Yes, I heard a wonderful trick. I can't take credit for it. Someone else shared it with me. But at the moment this woman wanted to yell at her child, she pictured the cross coming in between her and her child, thinking, is this what Jesus died for me to be yelling at my kids? And so
Oh,
if you get that habit of just picturing there's a cross that shows up right
mhm.
between you and your child, it immediately changes the landscape and how you're viewing your child in that moment. So I've
Sure.
all sorts of tricks like that I've exercised over the years because we do get frustrated, but we have a choice in how we exercise, how we
Well,
voice that frustration, right?
and let's be clear, like if I yell and that it might feel good for a moment, like, wow, let me get that out, right?
Yeah.
But then I feel like crap
Right?
because
Isn't
then
that sin?
my
That's
kid
sin.
is like yelling at me, or not yelling at my kid is crying, looking at me like, oh, I mean, that's
Yeah.
terrible. Like,
Yeah.
so it's not even good for you. It's not good for you to exercise that lack of self-control.
Yeah.
It's
That's so
not good
true.
for you.
It feels like a release in the moment, but it just creates an entire mess in your wake. And so
Yeah.
once I recognized that and I realized that I had a role to play in making sure that it didn't happen in the first place. It's about prevention. It's not so much how you're going to clean up your mom messes afterwards, although we've all had to do our fair share of that, right? But how am I going to prevent that angry woman from coming out in the first place? A lot of it is it's spiritual discipline, it's behavioral practices, but it's also just recognizing that this isn't what Jesus it is what Jesus died for. That's the sad thing is that this very trivial behavior that I'm engaging in, he had to die for that.
You're
And
right.
so, you know, I
That's pathetic.
it's shameful and pathetic, and my kids are so much happier when I'll be very honest with them. I'll tell them I'm very frustrated. Things are very difficult right now. The way that you're behaving is going to start triggering me. Can we all work together to make this a better day? You
How
have
old
a
are your
role to
kids
play in
now?
that. I have a role to play in that. What did
Yeah.
you say, Sam?
How old are your kids now?
Oh, now they are 18 and 15. So we have gone past many, many seasons of
Right.
the tantrums and the frustrations together. But now that they're teenagers, it's amazing to see how they're growing up into the people that God has always designed them to be. Not that there aren't plenty of frustrations with teenagers, right? But I don't have a need to yell anymore because we've developed this friendship. They don't do the dumb stuff they did when they were younger. And it's just become such a cool relationship that I like to think I helped to found with some of these practices along the way.
Sure.
Yet at the end of the day, God has just given me tremendously fabulous kids. And I want to recognize them for who they are and nurture who those people are. And that requires me stepping outside of myself, just like the no yelling thing does. It's you've got to
Right.
step outside of yourself, see who God has given you and who he's planted in front of you and how do you nurture that person. And that's just
Yeah.
been such an amazing experience for me. So I have one leaving the house in August. And so I'm verklempt on a daily basis.
Oh, dear.
But it's just been a great experience raising up my kiddos and they really have been the inspiration for me as a mom blogger and an author all these years and now getting to work with other students their age, helping them to follow suit and create content and put out positive messages into the world. That's just what it's all about. There's such value in that, I think.
I think our children are given to us to, in a sense, force us to grow up even
Yes,
more,
true.
right? We
Isn't
think
that
that we're
true?
adults, and then you get a baby, and you're like, "Oh, crud! I was
Yes.
not. That wasn't an adult. Now I'm adulting, right?"
Yes, now I'm
So
adulting.
that was 2 books,
Yes, yes.
but I
I've
know
also
there's 2 more.
2 more. So one of them is called, Generous Love, which actually I republished under the title Love Because. The publisher eventually gave rights back to me. I gave it a new spiffy cover.
Nice.
And that's just essentially that book is really about how to love people the way that God calls us to love them. So it's not just for moms, it's for everyone who really believes that there is hope for this world if we love one another the way Christ loves us. Because this scripture says, this is how they will know you are my disciples, if you love one another. It doesn't say, interestingly, if you how much you love God, but how much do you love one another? And so that book is all a practical examination of what it really means to love the way Jesus loves. And it's not easy, and it's often ugly, but it can make such a difference in this world because our kindness shows the world that kindness exists and that it's
Yeah,
something to aspire to.
this
So
is true.
yeah, and then I also have a devotional that I wrote through Our Daily Bread, and it is a devotional of 100 devotions for children ages 8 to 12, roughly. It's all the big questions that kids will ask about God, about the Bible, about heaven, and all just boiled down into some very easy to understand explanations in a devotional style. And that book was one of the most fun to write because my own younger daughter at the time was within that age range. And so I wrote it with her in mind just to really equip kids with biblical truth in a way that they
Right.
can understand. Yeah, I love
Now, are
love
you
writing.
right. I don't see any fiction in your writing. Are you coaching authors of fiction?
Yes, I coach authors of fiction, as well as nonfiction, but my role is in teaching them how to market their books. So at the Author
Oh,
Conservatory, there's an entire team of fiction instructors teaching them how to write, how to create the stories. There's a lot of crossover between nonfiction and fiction, and there's also a lot of differentiation. But my job is the same either way. Whether you are promoting a fiction book or a nonfiction book, it's about growing an audience of people who believe in you. It's about being unafraid to put yourself out there, knowing that it's really in obedience to the Lord because he called you to write this content. And
mm.
it's about best practices in terms of how do you serve an audience on a daily basis? How do you manage your writing career at the same time you're managing your marketing responsibilities? And all of it is done for the purpose of putting positive messages out into the world that examine real life issues, but do it in a way that helps the reader to see Jesus in it and to see that there is hope in this world. I think so much content out there today is just hopeless. I'm a big sucker for a happy ending. Give me some redemption at the end.
Just
And there
something. Just give
something.
a glimmer, just a glimmer of hope. There's
Yes.
so much out there that's just
It
sad and depressing.
it is. And I understand there's art in that, let's really examine the depths of the human condition, but can we come out from under it with some positive redemption? Because
Yeah.
that's ultimately the story of Jesus. So that is the truest story there is, really. So
So
that's
you
what I'm all about.
Right. So you're combining the writing craft with the marketing craft, because the
Yes.
marketing craft, and in fact, like the first lesson that you should tell every young person who is creating content is
Yeah.
sadly, it's not about having the best content, although that can help, but it's about getting it into people's hands.
It truly is, Sam. And this is the thing that a lot of young writers get wrong. They think if I just write this beautiful story, it's going to sell itself. But that is not so. In fact, as you and I have seen, there can be some really subpar content out there that sells millions of copies because it's about finding the audience, finding the buyer. Do you
I'm just
want quality
pointing
content?
people to
Yes.
the Oscars.
Yeah.
Like, just look at the Oscar. If it won an Oscar in the past 3 years or more, it's like, oh, that's not a movie I want to see then. Like
It's
that literally has become the metric. Oh, it won an Oscar? Okay, so we can skip that one now.
And when did that happen? And why did that happen? And that's the tide that we are trying to swim
Yeah.
against now.
Yeah.
And that our belief inside of the Author Conservatory is that really in content that brings hope is going to become more and more unique in the marketplace, therefore more and more desired. And we are training up our students to create that kind of content. And it matters in whether it's the film industry or the book industry. I think people are just tired of being depressed. I'm a book of the month club
Yeah.
member and I'm always shopping for new books. And so much of them are there's so much of what's out there, it's just heavy and it leaves me feeling empty. And our students are on fire to write content, write books that leave people feeling uplifted. Not that you're not examining the truth of life, not that you're not examining the hard things, but can we do it in a way that shows hope at the end? And
What do
and
you
that doesn't plant scenes in our heads that, especially for young readers, they don't need to be burned into their brains,
No.
especially for our YA readers. I mean, have you ever monitored what your kids are reading? The YA section? I blush reading what's in the YA section. And I
Yeah.
certainly am not going to hand it off to my 15-year-old daughter.
Are you looking for quality homeschooling resources? Apologia offers top-notch curriculum for all ages. It's designed to inspire a love of learning and a strong foundation in faith. Head over to apologia.com and use code SORBO10 to get 10% off your next purchase. Equip your children with the best education tools and save today at Apologia, the trusted choice for homeschooling families. Stay ahead of the storm with IQ Weather, a premium all-video homeschool course that makes learning science exciting and engaging. This vivid, entertaining program incorporates physics, chemistry, geography, geology, astronomy, and oceanography, giving your kids a well-rounded education in the fascinating world of weather. Designed to captivate young minds, IQ Weather makes complex concepts easy to understand and fun to explore. Visit iqweather.com and use code SAM to get 15% off your order. Give your kids a science education they'll love and stay prepared for anything. Start your IQ Weather journey today.
Have you ever monitored what your kids are reading? The YA section? I blush reading what's in the YA section. And I
Yeah.
certainly am not going to hand it off to my 15-year-old daughter.
No, I've been monitoring that kind of stuff for over 10 years. Since I pulled my kids out of school, I've been monitoring some of the literature, and I should put that in air quotes, literature that has entered into our schools, and it's only gotten worse. And yes, young adult literature has now been so perverted that it's become porn and violence porn. So it's both. It's sex porn and violence porn, and it's formulaic to incite a kind of a dependency or addiction, sadly. And they do get addicted. I had a friend whose daughter got addicted to reading this kind of thing, and it does something to the brain. It's very sad. So yes, I'm fully aware of young adult literature. In fact, what I've recently done is I've decided to go back and read all the youth classics.
Yes, there's beauty in
Because
classics.
they contain better language, frankly. The
Yes.
language usage of 100 years ago was so much more complex and so much more poetic and chewy. I like to call it chewy because you really have to read it. You can't just skim through it and get to the smut part or the violence part or whatever. Like,
Yes.
you read these books and you absorb them in a different way.
Yeah. And it is difficult to
So
read them. It's difficult for a teenager to understand the language, but that's part of the beauty of it is the process of learning it. I remember at 15 years old reading Jane Eyre and thinking it was one of the most beautiful stories I've ever read. I've since read it 4 or 5 more times, right? And Tale of Two Cities, I read my junior year of high school. I was enthralled by that book. And there's
Yeah, that's a really great book. I so enjoyed that book, and I was not looking forward to it. I was thinking, oh, I have to read this for my kids because at that point I was tutoring and I needed to read the book for the class. But
yes,
I so loved it.
enjoy it. And at the Author Conservatory, we're big fans of C.S. Lewis, J.R.R. Tolkien, and a lot of our students, they just aspire to write that kind of positive epic fantasy again. And there's so much to learn from that type of book that once upon a time was mainstream. And now it's almost considered, it's a little bit Christian subset, right? Which is so
Yeah, and
crazy
it's
to
too
me.
erudite, and
Yes.
we don't want to burden the kids with something that's too challenging. It's very sad what they've done in the schools. So listen, we're going to run out of time, but how does it work? How does the conservancy work?
Yeah, great question. So the Author Conservatory is it's a college alternative program. Some students do enroll their junior, senior year of high school, especially if they're homeschooled, they will dual enroll, but it's a 3-year program. Students apply to the conservatory and then they go through an interview process and they choose an enrollment date. So it is like a college program. There is annual tuition and students engage online with real life coaches. We'll do an online coaching program like this, like we're doing today, talking to each other online. And there are video based trainings as well as tons of office hours calls, direct training calls, and a community where students connect from all over the country and all over the world. And they learn together. And it's basically it's a structured homeschool college program specifically for students who are interested in writing novels specifically and writing content that really makes a difference in this world. So it's as simple as applying, having an interview, choosing your start date. And the program runs on it runs all year long. So there's rolling enrollment. But within
Are
there,
there classes?
there are classes. So you will walk alongside a cohort. And we have various classes you need to progress through the curriculum.
So you'll join, basically you'll join a cohort. So you
cohort.
choose your enrollment date based on what enrollment dates are offered.
Yes,
And
exactly.
so there's a group that enrolls on September 8th or whatever. There's another group that enrolls on December 8th or whatever. And so you're with that cohort. And so there are courses.
Yes, there are
Is it
courses.
like a college load?
It is essentially. It can be lighter than a college load in that we are specifically working on writing. We don't additionally have math courses or science courses or
Okay.
anything like that. It's all based on writing. But students spend anywhere from 10 to 20, 30 hours a week or more, depending on what stage they're in.
And it's
But they
all
have
online. There's nothing
it's
in
all online.
person. Okay.
There are conferences in person because we are aiming
Right.
to create real life connection for students as well, but it is
Nice.
so accessible. They attend their training calls online, they watch videos for training, they attend community calls online. We have a variety of time frames in which different calls are offered so that everyone can work with the coach within
Right.
their own availability,
How many
and
students do you have?
they'll join the cohort. They do fiction training, and then they also do business training alongside. So we
Right.
don't just teach them how to write, we teach them how to treat their writing career as a business. And that's
Right.
what
So it's
makes the Author Conservatory different.
right.
Because
It's both. And
it's both. Yeah.
that's a brilliant distinction because college teaches you to go get a job. But they don't teach you how to do an interview.
No.
They don't teach you actually how to get the job. They just teach you and well, we
Yes.
know college is like off the rails. But this is really interesting. So it's a 3-year program.
Your program.
What is
Yes.
tuition approximately?
Tuition is under $14,000 per year.
Okay.
And right now we actually have throughout the summer, we have a special promotion running. It's interesting that you say they don't teach you how to interview for the job. So we have a professional development course that we're right now inviting anyone who applies and enrolls to take even before their start date. So students can enroll and choose a date anytime within the next 12 months to start the Author Conservatory program, but they can immediately take our professional development program, which ironically is taught by my husband. He is a career coach and has a lot of experience at the university level with students, college age students. He teaches a course on how to find a job, how to find the right fit job. They do mock interviews. They teach these students how to find jobs that will help them afford the tuition so that while they're building their author career, they are equipped and qualified to get a job that's going to help them pay for their training so that while they're doing their training, not only how to become great writers, but how to become business people, they can fund it through their professional skills. And then we like to see them eventually clip their wings and release their wings, and
Yeah.
then they can go off and run their author business and won't necessarily need the job anymore. But we see the need for students to know how to conduct themselves professionally, not just in the author industry, but also in the workplace so that they can
Right.
fund their own tuition. It's such an
Sounds
important
like a
need.
really cool, just a very cool idea.
Yeah.
Who founded it?
Brett Harris is our founder. Brett Harris is a best-selling author. He wrote with his brother a book called Do Hard Things, which has been out for goodness, 10, 15 years. It's been
Yeah.
sold, I think, over 700,000 copies. And Brett himself is the son of Greg Harris, who was a pioneer in the homeschool industry. So we don't accept only homeschool students, but we are heavily a homeschool environment. Students come from homeschool environments. They are very open to the alternative education. Brett is brilliant. He himself is an excellent writer and an excellent businessman. So he understands the need for students
Yeah.
to learn the
Both.
business side as well as the creative side. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's wonderful to be working with him. And he's very passionate about training up Christian writers to fill the world with positive messages.
Well, that's very cool. So we're gonna do my last, because we're running out of time here. I've got 3 questions that I typically ask all of my guests. The first one is, what is your own educational background, and
Yeah.
how do you use it today in the work that you do?
Well, I was public school educated back in the day when public school wasn't so scary. And then I attended a private college for music. Sam, I have a music degree, music performance degree. I still don't know why my parents allowed me to pursue that and spend so much money on it. But I did work in the industry. I worked in music publishing for a number of years. For many years after, I've been involved in music arts at our church. But I learned how to be a performer. I learned about creativity. And out of that, I developed an author career and a fearlessness to be an entrepreneur. My father was an entrepreneur and my mother was an entrepreneur. And so I see the value in that. We've always taught our children how to be entrepreneurs. So my own education is fairly traditional, but I've taken a non-traditional route since. And
Yeah.
I don't believe that we just need to plug ourselves into a job in the marketplace. I think opportunities exist for boys and girls, which is so important to me. I have 2 daughters, and I do believe that girls have opportunities today. And they can be great moms and pursue what God has called them to do, maybe not all at once. but there are opportunities
Right.
for our girls today too. And I want them to be educated in a way that shows them that those possibilities exist for them.
What advice would you give your younger self?
Don't worry so much about the degree, quite honestly. Don't worry about the grades. Don't worry about that degree. At the time, maybe it opened some doors, but I am not doing professionally what I learned in college.
This is the point of that question, right? And so, and I love that you've tied in that your parents taught you. So when I'm saying your education, I really should change it to your schooling background, because of course your education involved your parents, your life experience and all that.
Yeah.
But yes, don't be so reliant on that degree being the golden ticket. It's
Yes.
Willy Wonka again. Okay,
Yes, it's not.
what is the most urgent cultural shift that you see is needed in our society today to get us back on track?
I feel like I can say this on your show, but I would really like to see family values restored. I think there is I'm trying to say this in a way that is kind, but there's been such a departure from traditional core family values, and then we wonder why our society is falling apart.
So what is family values to you? Like, can you
Um,
give us a working definition?
yes, family values to me means that there is a mom and a dad raising children who believe that they were created perfectly exactly the way God created them. And if they believe they're supposed to be somebody else, then that is an issue to deal with with grace and mental health counseling, not affirmation.
So traditional family structure is more what
Traditional
we're
family
talking about, the
structure,
traditional family structure, which
traditional
is what
gender
God
roles.
ordained.
Yes, what God
Yeah.
ordained. And by traditional gender roles, I don't mean that mom can't pursue her dreams. If she has a calling from God, pursue her dreams. Also, it is 100% a fulfilling dream to raise your kids. And I believe my children were born girls. They are always meant to be girls. That is one of the biggest heartaches for me in today's culture, is seeing how kids are being taught to believe that they should examine whether or not that's correct.
Yes. Yes, it's very
Yeah.
dangerous. Well, you and I are in complete agreement on that.
Yeah.
So, I would like to thank you, Betsy Kopitzke, for coming on the program,
Thank you.
and, that's it for us for now. This is the Sam Sorbo Show. Thanks so much for tuning in. Listen, don't forget to subscribe and like and share this episode if it meant something to you. We need to grow in our following, and you can help with that. And you've tuned in for a reason. I hope you've been edified. Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, speak truth and speak it boldly. We'll see you next time.
The views and opinions expressed in the Sam Sorbo Show are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views and positions of the Herzog Foundation.